What's going on, guys? Big Red coming at you today with part 2 of the setup guide video and how to. Once again, always the disclaimer: right way, wrong way, and Red's way. In these videos, I'm explaining to you my way of making the setup and my way of making tweaks. It's not going to work for everybody, and if it don't feel bad, because something in these videos is going to work out for you, help you gain a little more speed. Not only that, but comfort. It's a growing process, it's a learning process, and you know, it's all about the time. The more time you spend doing it, the more you understand the things, the quicker you're going to be able to be. So I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you all. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. But before we get into it, I have to give a quick shout out to Bad Ping and also the Race Mechanic and Setup Guide app. It's an app to where you can go in and you can share setups for NASCAR Heat 4 across the community, have them voted up or down, earn badges. Eventually you'll be able to create a team. That's something we're trying to build now. And within that team, let's say you have 5 of your buddies, y'all can share setups back and forth, keep notes on each setup. So everything is digital now, and that's just the way everything's getting. So really excited for that. Can't wait to see the traffic roll through there and see how many people hop on board. So enjoy the video. Any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below, and we'll catch y'all later. Thank you.
Main Racing selects William Kyle Arnold, also known as Red 44 24.
When it comes to tire pressure, what I suggest for everybody, this will be a short section. Stick on default. And the reason being is the only crazy amount of time I've seen ever gained when it comes to jacking your tire pressure up, all kind of crazy stuff, or your cambers, is going to be somewhere like a super speedway. There's a lot of them guys that are doing that, and yes, they are gaining a lot of time doing it, but they're running 4 laps on 1 times wear, and by the end of it, they still only have 20% tire wear. If they actually run a real race 13% or 4 times or something like that, you know, at that point, they're going to have a lot of homework to do when it comes to their tire wear. No knock on them, it's just a different type of racing that I don't usually do. I'm not a super speedway guy. So when it comes to that, leave it at default. Wait till your entire setup's built and complete. At that point, you can start changing it. Because what you'll be paying attention to, along with your camber, your tire wear and camber and tire pressure all goes together. You'll be looking at your whole tire and looking especially at the center. That's how you can tell what you need to do with your air pressure. If the outside and inside of your tire is 205 and then the dead center of your tire is 170, you probably need to go up on a pound of air. And what that'll do basically is it'll give you more grip because you're going to make a bigger contact patch with the actual ground. And that's what we're after here. That's what we're chasing when it comes to air pressure. Is going to be overall grip. So now we'll move on to the miscellaneous settings, and we'll go ahead and get into all of this. This will all kind of roll over together anyway, so we'll just cover it all in the same section. All right, once again on your cambers, I'll go ahead and show you what I end up running almost everywhere, and a lot of y'all that's looked at my setups notice this is pretty much it right there, 2.2 and negative 1.8. For some reason, by the time I get through building my setups, that's what they always end up at, and it really works out for me. 1435, a 1.435. That's definitely another thing that I like starting with. Definitely sway bar. Sway bar is kind of a hit or miss. I know a lot of your longer run guys, your league guys that are running 100% races or 50% races, whatever they run, they like a thicker sway bar. And the reason being, it gives you a lot more stability over the long run. If you have any questions about that, definitely leave it below. The easiest way to tell you on front sway bar is the thicker the sway bar, the less your nose can actually turn. That's why a lot of your guys like myself, when it comes to road courses, I'll run a 1.1 on the front. And the reason being is your front end will turn a whole lot easier. You'll see a lot of guys, or if you're running into the issue where you're going down the straightaway at, let's say, Texas or one of your ovals, and your car is twitching really bad, it's kind of bouncing, darting right to left, you probably need to go up on your front sway bar. But when doing that, that's going to directly relate to our next thing, which is your track bars. So right now, a 1435 with 10.5 track bars work really well. If I was to go up to a 1.5 on my front sway bar, I would also have to make a correction in my track bars for that. I would essentially have to go up a full round to 11.5 on both my rear track bars to get the same feeling. The only difference is now our nose is going to be locked to the track a little better. It's really good once again on your bigger tracks. A 1.4 is where I found to be my niche when it comes to building setups and helping out. So essentially, front sway bar, the bigger the sway bar, the less turn in. The lower the sway bar, the better turn in. But when you do that, you have to make the correction with your track bar. Now that'll lead us into the track bar talk. Alright, now that we've covered how the front sway bar and rear track bars actually work together, now we're going to go into actually what the track bars do themselves. The left rear track bar is for your initial corner entry for your rear end. That's what guides the rear end on turn in into the center of the corner. Then your right rear controls from the center off. So they work hand in hand, and that's a lot of the times you'll see me always run 10.5, 10.5. You know, everything matches up. Sometimes you'll see 10.5 left, 12 right, and you're essentially, they call it the yaw of the car, right? So your rear end's actually stepped out at a different direction. It's basically dog tracking is what a lot of people knows it as. If you look at the front of a NASCAR going down an actual straightaway, it's not setting perfectly straight like you would think it would be. It's actually setting at an angle. And the reason being, it helps it going off into a corner, it can make that turn and keep going. It's a weird thing to think about, but think about your rear end and then shifting it out a little bit and your right rear tire a little bit forward. Alright. It's strange. The easiest way to describe it is if you ever watch the late model dirt track, when they come off the corner and they hit the gas and the left rear tire sucks up under the rear end, it goes from about 116 wheelbase down to about 108. And the way it's doing that and what that's causing is it's causing that car to turn left even that much more. Kind of went off on a side note there. But anyway, left rear track bar is for your initial turn in. Your right rear track bar is for your center off. If you need to change anything to help correct a snap off the corner, your track bar is definitely something you want to start with. If you notice once you go down on your track bar, it's just way too tight, at that point you can start changing a couple of other things, and I would suggest a left rear spring. Go up on your left rear spring. Yes, it does help with the drifting loose, but it'll also tighten up that exit, especially if you're looking at making something such as a track bar change versus a spring change. Next is brake bias. On here at 65%, I would never run 65%. I usually run somewhere around 78%. The higher the percentage, the more toward the front brakes is going to do. So right now, the front brakes are getting 65% of the braking power, while the rear would be getting 35%. You jack it up to, 78, it'll be 78 versus 22 and so forth. So, track like Martinsville is the easiest way to explain this one. You're going into the corner and you're hitting the brake and your front end's just sliding straight to the wall. At that point, start dialing back your brake bias. Drop it about 5% just to see what it'll do. And that's how you can find that happy median. So if you go out there with 60% brake pressure, you run off into the corner and tap the brake and the rear end slides around on you. You'll know to adjust that higher at that point to put more brakes toward the front. Grill tape, directly related to gearing. There's really nothing to talk about when it comes to grill tape. On this game, I like running between 245 degrees to 250 by myself. That way in the draft, I know I'm not overheating. The magic number on overheating with this game is 261 degrees. And at that point, yeah, you know you'll blow a motor over a long run. But wheel lock, I've definitely started running a lot lower during this game. Wheel lock basically helps me. Easiest way to describe that one is down your straightaways. You'll see a lot of people with jacked up wheel locks darting left and right. I know I said a lot of that's got to do with front sway bar, which it does, but a lot of it has to do with people that just can't drive either. I I came from dirt, so I was used to running 30 wheel lock everywhere. It does not work well on asphalt, and it took a while to get used to that and making setups around that. But I've got now to where my average wheel lock is somewhere from 4 to 8 to 10 degrees. 10 degrees is way high, and that's usually on short tracks. Your longer tracks, such as, you know, Vegas or Chicagoland, Michigan, all of those are going to be around 5 to 6 degrees. Wheel offset goes right along with your wheel lock. When you're going down the straightaway, if your car is turning too hard to the right, is trying to bump the wall, dial your wheel offset down some and try to get that car as straight as possible, and you don't even have to touch the wheel going down the straightaway. The more you're having to turn going down the straightaway or bobbling back and forth, the more speed you're actually. So last but not least, we are actually getting into the gears. Gears, once again, is probably one of the strangest things you can deal with. A lot of people has questions, and it's really hard to tell you in text form across a comment on how to run your gears or what you do with your gears. Me, myself, solo without a draft, I love to be around 8,000 to 8,300 RPMs in the cup cars. Reason being, I know when it comes to the draft, we're going to pick up about 3/10, and I'm going to pick up speed. And the last thing you want to be doing is redlining. If you're looking for a league race type setup and you think it's going to be a fuel mileage, you know, you can definitely dial it back then. The only thing you have to realize is the lower your gear, you know, the less speed you're going to have solo. The better it's going to perform fuel mileage wise, but you are going to be giving up power, and that's going to end up giving up speed. So when it comes to actually finding your setup or finding your actual gears, what you need to do, what's the perfect gear for each track, I'm going to drop a actual gear chart down below. What this gear chart is going to do for you is you're going to actually find that across one side is going to be your final rear end ratio. So in here it's a 340, and then it's going to have your fourth gear up top, which is a 1.0. So you would follow those down, and that would actually equal out to a 340. Well, if you notice you're turning too many RPMs and you actually need a little bit less, let's say you were shooting for a 337 final. What you would do is you would look for that 337 in this graph. And then if you look to your left, it's going to show you what your rear end needs to be. And then if you look up to the top, it's going to show you actually what your fourth gear needs to be to make that work. And what that'll essentially do is that's going to give you your best gear, best case scenario for your track. Me, myself, personally, I float anywhere from the 294 to the 345 gears, and I play with those in between. After doing it long enough, and the more you become comfortable with this, you're definitely going to be able to figure out what gear works best for you at what kind of tracks. I know the 307 with a 105 or 307 with a 110 was pretty much the king when the game first came out at all your mile and a halves. Since then, a lot of people started fine-tuning, finding 394s, or even going down to, you know, not a 394, but a 294, or even going down to something like a 356 and jacking it up to like a 120. It's just whatever combination works best for your setup and what you're looking for with your car. Another thing to realize too, the higher RPMs, the more that's going to affect you in the corner and how your car handles. You can actually change your gear and change everything about how your car handles and the way it feels over the long run. But hopefully y'all enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned a little bit of something. I will be doing a follow-up video to this, of course, but stay tuned. I'm going to go into some questions I've had from the last video I uploaded, and we're going to try to explain a little more in depth on some of the fixes you can do according to what your car is doing. Now that we're starting to wrap up this video, we're going to go ahead and go over a couple of questions, but first I want to cover some things that kind of a quick reference guide that'll help you when making a setup and knowing which adjustments to do according to what your car is doing at that point in time. So the first one we're going to cover is loose, and there's several different types of loose. There's entry loose, center, and then there's exit. And I know with exit, there's several different types of exit loose. So one of the easiest ones on entry is going to be your front sway bar. Once again, if you're anything under a 1.4 on your cup cars, you got to make sure you've made the adjustments for your track bars also. If you need a way to reference this and to see what I'm talking about, go into a quick race and definitely play with it and try it out. Leave your track bars at 10.5 and drop the front sway bar down to 1.3. and you'll feel what I'm talking about when it comes into the corner and how, you know, the whole front end just dives down and the rear end slides out from under you. So that really covers entry, and there's not really much to talk about when it comes to entry of the corner. The only other thing that could be, you know, affecting your entry of the corner and getting super loose on entry could be how hard your rear springs are. If you're really, really hard, say you're running 600 rear springs, you know, that could be something you need to drop those down, because at that point all you're doing is skating across the top of the track. Center of the corner. There's a couple of different things you can do for the center of the corner. Let's go ahead. I forgot to cover one thing when it comes to entry. Another thing is drifting throughout the corner, which we've covered already. Left rear spring, bring it up 20 pounds, see what that feels like. If it's a little too snug at that point, drop it 10 pounds and you're kind of right there in the middle. And then now we'll move to the center of the corner. Center could be affected by a couple of different things. One of the biggest things is going to be wedge. I always tell everyone, wedge is your biggest deal when it comes to center of the corner. You can tighten and loosen your car up. This is a lot of things the preset guys do to make your presets faster. Loosen it up, of course, go down on your wedge, tighten it up, go up. Another thing I've noticed with this game with some of these setups is in the center of the corner you almost feel like you're teetering back and forth. And it's not really like it's driving off the right rear, but your car's just bobbling. Sometimes it'll flatten out and push straight to the wall. Sometimes it feels like it over-rotates and dives down to the bottom. Another thing you can do there is going to be wedge. That's definitely, probably, in my opinion, the biggest thing that you need to do at that point would be tighten it up with the actual wedge. Exit of the corner and being loose, this is probably the biggest one everybody runs into with some sort of setup. So a lot of those are going to be on your short tracks, Martinsville, Richmond, Bristol, things like that. There's several different types of loose when it comes off. So the first one we're going to talk about is going to be over-rotation to snapping loose. Your over-rotation. So if it feels like it's binding up on your right front tire, then all of a sudden just giving out and snapping loose, that's where we'll go back to our right front spring and we'll raise it up a little bit. If it feels like it's just absolutely over-rotating 100% coming off the corner, like your rear end just snaps and there's nothing you can do about it, that's when we'll either adjust our left rear spring and bring it up, or our right rear track bar. I usually suggest track bar when it comes to this situation, because overall it's kind of the biggest and the quickest fix of doing things without having to change a lot on your setup. You can sit here and play with a million different track bars and not really have to touch anything else until you get to the fine tuning portion of your setup. But your right rear track bar, take it down a couple of clicks, see what it feels like. If it feels like it's not rotating enough at that point, drop your wedge a little bit or drop your left rear spring. Another thing you can do if you're snapping loose, or if you're coming off the corner and you're just losing grip. Say you're getting the homestead feel where you're coming off of 3 and 4 and all of a sudden you're kind of angled to the left and it just keeps going straight to the left. So it's not really spinning out as much as it's just driving straight to your left. At that point, I would do either the left rear or the right front spring. One of those is kind of a driver preference. See what you think about it. See the way it feels to you. The next we're going to cover is sliding off the corner or losing grip. You feel like basically your rear end just comes off the ground. You lose all kind of grip. One of my favorite things to do at that point is your rear rebound. Actually bump and rebound. Take all of them up one click. So on a setup like what we have on the screen, I will take them all to 4. The reason being, it'll slow down the release coming off the corner. It'll keep the weight transferred to the rear for that much longer, and it helps. If that still doesn't work, I suggest bringing both, not just one, but both rear springs down 10 pounds, 10 to 20 pounds. I do things in 20-pound increments to begin with just to see what they feel like, and then after that I'll kind of go to the 4. But hopefully that helped when it comes to your loose, and that kind of explained a little more in detail when it comes to that. But next we're going to do actual pushing. Next we're going to go into tight and what it feels like and what you can do when your car's tight throughout the corner. The first thing we're going to cover is going to be entry. What does it feel like when you're tight on entry? Basically, when you go in the curve and you got a lot of wheel into it and it's still just sliding the front tires and there's nothing you can do about it. A lot of that, 9 out of 10 of that on this game has to do with the line you're running. And that's something that was real hard for me, and that's something I learned at Kansas. I ran 1,000,000 laps there, and I never ran 3 and 4 the right way until after a few practice races when I got behind people and I seen the way they were arcing the corner. The arc into the corner definitely helps you from center off also with your driving line. But that is your biggest thing. You want to make sure you're running the track right and you're hitting your lines right. If you're still having issues with that and you're turned into the corner, lower front springs can help you out with that also. Not only lower front springs, but right front. The lower your right front, the more rotation. But remember, the lower your right front on rotation going into the corner, that's going to affect how you get off the corner. So this is where you run into the issue with the springs when I said they were more aggravating, but it was probably my favorite part because you got to find that center. So another thing we could do there is we could add nose weight to it. Nose weight is going to help that car turn in, and at the same time it's going to help it throughout the center. But the happy median comes, especially with long run setups, you got to look at your tire wear. Another thing that you can do for your initial entry is going to be your left rear track bar. You can actually spread your track bars out, and that'll help you angle into the corner better. So you can lower that track bar down, and for me, lowering it actually helps. A lot of people say go up on it. I tend to go up on the left rear track bar, especially with dirt setups, when I'm running into an issue trying to get forward bite from the center off. But we don't really fight that when it comes to asphalt, so I wouldn't too much focus on that. Of course, in the center, we're going to be looking at wedge. Come down on the wedge, that's going to help your car rotate. And then on exit, if you're tight coming off, I would definitely try lowering the left rear spring first. And if that's not the feel you're looking for, go up on your right rear track bar for more rotation. Alright, hopefully y'all enjoyed the video for today. I put a lot of time and effort in, writing all this stuff down and trying to figure out what to say and how to say it and not going too deep into everything. Once again, this was the first step of the setup guide. This is episode number 1. I'm sure I missed a ton of stuff, and there's probably a lot of stuff people wants me to go into, which I didn't get to do here today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Remember, there's a right way, there's a wrong way, and there's Red's way. This happens to be my way of doing things. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's setups are different. But at the same time, my main goal for this whole thing today was to get new people involved in custom setups, because I know it's a deterrent when you go into a room and people's 2 seconds faster than you and you have no clue how any of this works or what it does. So hopefully we covered that today, and once again, thank you all for the recent support. We're up to almost 1,200 subs now, and we're continuing to grow. So I'll catch y'all on the next video. Please remember to leave a like, comment, sub, all that good stuff. Any comments below we'll look over, and we'll definitely do the next one. And thank y'all once again. Peace.